Yo, welcome into the H-Town Huddle. I am your host, the Neon Peacock. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, showing up, and showing out to episode number 2. And we're doing it live here on a Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m., give or take a couple of minutes every Wednesday night. Thank you all for joining me. Really appreciate y'all. If you tuned into the show last week, then you can go ahead and toss some stuff into the chat. Let me know where I was right and where I was wrong. But for the most part, pretty much right. The Texans came out, did their thing versus the Colts in Indy week 1. And next week, this upcoming week now, they face Chicago Bears at home for the home opener. So really exciting stuff there. Let's give a quick shout out to the folks that did show up in the chat. Shout out to Sir Bongs a lot, bro. Appreciate you for showing up, showing out. Same thing here. Our ear to the streets, Lee, always giving me the good news. Make sure you're checking him out on the GWN network as well. Last week, we rolled for a little longer than I expected, probably about 2 hours, as opposed to the typical 1 hour to 1 hour, 30-minute format that I like to roll with. But the chat got real active. It answered a lot of fantasy football questions in preparation for week 1, as well as covering all the stuff with the Texans. So, if you got any fantasy football questions, I can go ahead and answer those as well. But the show is mainly pertaining to the Texans. If you got Texans questions, obviously toss those into the chat and we'll get to those as well. But for the most part, we're just here recapping what happened last week, breaking down the fantasy implications, and then moving on into what we should expect or some trends to look at for week 2 versus Chicago at home for the home opener. And then I'll give you all the little details and things that you probably don't know about or haven't really heard about because you're not as in tune to the Houston Texans as I am. I think it's like I live, eat, and breathe this team, and I have been for quite some time. I am rocking a Neon Peacock original Houston Jam shirt with Diggs and Mixon showing up and showing out this week. Both of these guys had hell of a game. 3 touchdowns here between these guys, 2 receiving for Diggs, 1 rushing for Mixon, putting the Texans on the board and getting that so pivotal divisional win versus the rival Indianapolis Colts. I would consider them probably the Texans' main rival in the division, followed by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then the lowly Tennessee Titans. Those guys are nothing anyway. So we're here, guys. Let's break down last week. We'll move through basically the way that the stuff went down. I'm going to give the Colts their props. I'm not going to, try to take anything away from what they did. It was a really close fought game, a battle, in this war that is a 17 game season for these NFL guys. So, the first battle goes to the Texans and kudos to them for going on the road and going blow to blow, toe to toe with the Indianapolis Colts, who I think are a very good football team. And it shows so because of the way, that you guys drafted some of their pieces in fantasy football. Jonathan Taylor, back of the first round pick, a lot of folks reaching up for Anthony Richardson, in the 5th or sooner rounds I've seen him taken, especially as the season got closer. And then guys like Michael Pittman, right, who were in a lot of people's radar as a top, maybe possibly a top finishing wide receiver in fantasy football, and some other ancillary pieces, right? And we know that they have a good defense, and these games are typically usually decided by a field goal between the Colts and the Texans, no matter how their squad is, who the quarterback is. Usually, it just doesn't matter. These things always go down to the wire. So kudos to the Texans for pulling out the much-needed win to set the tone early in the season and get the ball rolling on what should be, a super high expectation type season, but should still be a very successful one regardless. So, man, really pumped up, really excited that we got that win. What can I say? The good football team that we got there in Houston. They travel well. The fans travel well. So appreciate all those guys who do travel and get out to the game, make a lot of noise. And support the Texans. I know that they really appreciate that. And so any of y'all in the Houston area going to make it out to this game this weekend, get out there and be loud when the opposing offense is out there and when the Texans are on offense. Then we want to make it nice and quiet for CJ, for the guys to get good communication and do what they do. But I remember just a couple of years ago when the Texans were at the bottom, very, very bottom. We took it all the way back to 2 years ago, and they were like the laughing stock of the NFL. They were the bottom of the division for 2 seasons, 2 back-to-back 4-win seasons. Defraud Watscombe, as I like to call him, was holding out as well. So low time. So those of you who did stick with the Texans, with us, with everybody through the worst times. We're here now, and it's looking really good. And no more sad violins for us. It's time to get out there and celebrate. That win feels good. Like I said, even though it was a close game, a narrow victory, it goes back to that. I was going to cut the clip. That's what I forgot to do before the show today. But it goes back to that Fast and the Furious clip where he's like, "I almost had you." It's like, you win, you lose, you lose. And if you go back and you look at the win-loss column, it's going to have the dub there for the Texans, and nobody's going to really remember how that went down. You're going to talk about maybe like Anthony Richardson's 3 great throws as opposed to, the entire Texans coming out and playing really well as a unit. So good stuff there. All right, well, let's really jump into the breakdown.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. And now, it's time!
All right, let's break it down. Hey, shout out to Crooked Commish. Hey, man, appreciate you. And we see that it's a Bears fan, so really appreciate you coming in here, man. Like I said, I don't really talk a lot of smack. I just kind of lay it down how it is, and we do the fantasy isms and break down the stats. But you guys got Caleb, which is really great. The last time they think the Bears met the Texans a couple seasons ago, you guys got our number. I had a bet with my good friend Jimmo the Icon, who's a Bears fan, going down on that one, and I had to do a public apology video that is probably still somewhere on my Twitter. Can probably go back and look that up. But I think it was Mitch Trubisky who got the better of us. I don't even remember who was playing quarterback for you guys, to be honest. I just know that we did lose that game. But hopefully, like you said, how much easier do we think it'll be this week at home? Well, the home crowd, that's going to play something into it. I know the guys are going to be pumped. The town's going to be pumped, so that'll help. You're right. The team doesn't have to travel. The field in Indianapolis, if you guys heard anything about it or saw some glimpses of the game, there was a lot of slipping going around. I don't know if the players had the right cleats and whatnot. So it affected both teams a little bit. I know that on one of Anthony Richardson's the lone interception that he threw, it looked like his receiver slipped at the end of his route, which is kind of weird. But I'll say the announcer said that, so I'll kind of buy that because he did kind of like lay out flat and not necessarily even get a hand on that. And then our rookie safety, Kalen Bullock, had to dive and intercept that one as well. So it was kind of thrown out. He was either thrown out way ahead, or guys were slipping and falling on that route as well. But it did happen. There was some loose footing. So I think obviously the Texans being at home, getting to open up the season with the first game, that's going to just be a huge difference in that regard. So I don't have to go on the road. So that'll be a lot easier, I think, as far as communication. And, because I know in one of the pressers, Tank Dell was saying that it was pretty loud out there in Indy at the Loud House, a.k.a. the Stroud House. And, they had to kind of yell in the huddle to get the plays in and whatnot. So that is how it is. I don't think it's going to be so much easier. I think that the Chicago Bears are going to get better as the weeks go by. I do know that they're kind of dealing with some injuries in their wide receiver core, and we'll get to that when we get to the Bears portion of the podcast. I'll try to run through the Colts recap fairly quickly and then move on and do this in a timely manner, because last week it was kind of just like we're back here shooting the shit, and then I got a whole ton of questions, and it took me forever to get through all the content that I wanted to get into before getting into week one. But this week I'm a little more organized, got the stuff lined up, ready to rock and roll. So I am looking forward to this game. I am looking forward to the matchup with Caleb Williams versus Stroud. So we've got to see it. I'm going to see how that goes. My Bears didn't give y'all too much to worry about on offense. With the injuries, it's going to be a little bit different. Like I said, I think Swift looked fairly well in his debut there. So it just depends. I know that the Texans kind of bottled up the run defense for the Colts this last week. Not necessarily, though, versus Anthony Richardson. So if Caleb can kind of get it going and maybe just be a little more decisive, tuck the football in those scrambling situations instead of trying to get something going downfield and taking a long sack, that might be the difference where they could possibly, push a little bit into the Texans defense. But like I said, we'll get there when we get there. Let's go over some of the stuff that I do have lined up for today. Hold on, I have too many sound effects open. I got to get to the nitty gritty stuff here in the overlays. So we'll start out at the top, and from the top, I was talking about Anthony Richardson a little bit. We did talk about the schedule, and there it is right here. It's kind of zoomed out, but Indy was the opener there on the road, and then we have Chicago this coming week. And the color of the @ or the versus is going to tell you what the uniform scheme is supposed to be. Texans typically wear the dark steel blue at home for home games, but since this is the season opener, they've been known to switch it up and wear the white. So the Texans will be all iced out for this game, apparently. And so I'm assuming that Chicago will either choose to wear the orange or dark navy top that they have there. So looking forward to this. It's a Sunday night game. It is the first Sunday night game for the Houston Texans in 5 years. So long time coming. Tank Dell said that he was excited to show up and show out. I think when they asked him, they're like, Tank, this is going to be your first primetime game. And he cut the reporter off and he just said, I'm ready. So I'm expecting some good things from Tank Dell. I know I said that last week, but I'll get into the breakdown of how all the receivers fared and the target distribution and the types of routes they ran. And that's why I'm still extremely encouraged about Tank Dell being that deep threat pop-off home run hitter who can really break open your fantasy lineup if you've been slotting him in as a flex receiver. So last week I did have him ranked high up on that list, but he ended up facing off against Kenny Moore for the majority of the game. And, that's Indy's best lockdown defensive guy, even though he's a nickel guy. So it is what it is there. But like I said, we'll get to it with the graphics when I get there. I did want to go straight off the top, though, and talk about C.J. Stroud and the quarterback comparison. These are brought to you here by Next Gen Stats. And there you can see he was 24 of 32 for 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. He did have a couple of throws here where he got really lucky. He tried to throw one out of bounds late. Got picked off, and the heel, it was like a reverse Isaiah Likely situation, and the heel of the defender stepped out of bounds, so he was saved there. And then I believe there was at least one other instance where he threw it into like the hands of the defender, and he just kind of butterfingered that. So he did kind of get away with 1 or 2 there, but like I mentioned off the top, almost doesn't count. So he does end up with a 2-0 TD and interception ratio. And if you look at the chart there and look at all those green dots, especially that really deep one down over there, plus 50 yards, which is just beautiful to see. And then the 2 touchdowns beyond the line of scrimmage to Stephon Diggs, one on the out route there and the other on the crossing route where he's able to get in. Now, if Diggs doesn't get into the end zone, his stat line probably doesn't look as great as it does for fantasy at the end of the day. However, incorporated pretty equally with all the other wide receivers. So we'll break down the target distribution here in a second. But C.J. Stroud looking really good. Here's the QB comparison. Then this is off of kudos to one of Texans podcasts that I like to watch, Texans Takeover. So shout out to them and for them providing the stat that I stole. So week 1 here, it's just a nice chart. I didn't really have time to do my own graphics this week. Last week I got a little fancy and time consuming because there's no football on, right? But now we're in the rush of things. I had waiver wires to set all day yesterday and today, and a full day of work, but here we are now. So this was the week 1 comparison. I know we're going into a little bit into the Chicago matchup here, but the passing is probably the big differential here, the quarterback rating and stuff. But like I said, if Caleb can do some things with his legs, there might be some room for improvement that might open up some things later on in the game where you can start taking shots. But like I said, it just kind of also depends on his wide receiver availability. But those are the week 1 stats from Caleb Williams and C.J. Stroud this past week. And the 115.9 QB rating for C.J. Stroud is phenomenal. No sophomore slump for him, it appears. He's doing his thing. So let's go back to, I meant to pull up Anthony Richardson's stats when I was talking about him here. So 9 of 19, 212 yards. 11.2 yards per attempt is really good. The 2-to-1 interception ratio per TD to interception ratio looks decent on paper. The 9 of 19 does not. And if you really look at the way some of those throws, you go back and you break them all down. He had 4 throws, which are the big ones that hit, right? So I think he had 3 of them to Alec Pierce. 2 of them were over 50 yards. I think all of them were over 50 yards. So, and then he had that long touchdown to Ashton Dulin, who just kind of like yacked it. And then our safety play was horrible. So, so on 4 of his 9 completions, which is nearly half of the half, because, 9 of 19 is not quite half, right? So lingering around that 50%, and then 50% of those 9 completions, 4 for 179 and 2 touchdowns, which is astronomical. But if those receivers don't come up with the football, if a defender gets a finger on it, you're looking at a really bad day through the air for Anthony Richardson. And his one rushing touchdown did come on a must-get fourth and I believe it was like 4th and goal from like the 6 or so. So that was a must-have TD where he kind of put guys on his back. Petrie, who's a sure tackler but a small defender, got to him first but wasn't able to keep him across the goal line. So you will see this with a huge, freakish athlete who has a rocket arm. He will have, I believe, in my opinion, this is probably the best or one of the best games, the ceiling game that you're going to see from AR5, Anthony Richardson. I wish him all the best, and I hope that he stay healthy. That way we can see what a full season's like. But keep in mind, though, guys, that's not what you drafted him for. You drafted him for his legs so that he can rush in for those touchdowns. And then you get those long bombs, and that they're willing to take those shots downfield. So that's going to help. I think if you have a better rushing day from Jonathan Taylor, which the Texans absolutely shut him down, it's beautiful. But if you would have had a better rushing day, and they'll eventually get that going versus lesser teams, then that's going to open up the field a lot more. He also missed A.D. Mitchell for like 2 touchdowns, like wide open. So that's what you're getting with AR. And you're just hoping that, he connects on half of those, and which he kind of did, right? A lot of those were in the turf, looked really bad. And then the other ones, his receivers went up, made a play. And, 4 of those connected for 180 yards, basically, and 2 touchdowns. So you take those away. I don't want to do that. Like I said, I'm not taking anything away from Anthony Richardson, but the rest of it looks really bad, really putrid, as far as yardage and completions, right? So, just something to worry about. You hope that there's room for improvement. Obviously, you can always fix these things, but shout out to JT O'Sullivan, former NFL quarterback. He does a QB breakdown. He did Stroud and A-Rich in both of these games. And there's a lot of meat left on the bone with AR, but at the same time, I feel like teams can replicate what the Texans did as far as they didn't even really pressure him too much. He had 2 sacks right on the game, but they did a pretty good job other than those 2 to 3 plays, right? Where they just weren't able to be in the proper position. I think they were a little bit surprised. One of those he threw from like AR threw from his haunches, ducked behind his lineman. So MJ Stewart is a real liability for us. I'm sorry, MJ Stewart was hurt, not in the game, but in coverage, the other safety, Jimmy Ward was just horrible. He got mossed by Alec Pierce. If you're getting mossed by Alec Pierce, it may be time to retire. He's a good box safety, but I don't see him doing that well in coverage. Kalen Bullock, who did have the interception, young rookie, get him out there. He has range. He can cover deep guys when we play. Maybe that'll be something the next time we see the Colts on October 27th. I might actually be live there at that game. So just give you some insights of what I see with my very own eyes on the field. And that is also my anniversary. It'll be my 12th year anniversary. So shout out to my wife for suggesting that we go to that game on our wedding anniversary. Let me check in with the chat. How's everybody going? Hey, shout out Bullet Pretzels, man. Thank you for showing up and showing out. Good evening, sir. Good evening. Lee, Texans defense will give Colts need to contain AR5 running. Yeah, so that's where the Texans defense basically needed to just clean everything up. Containing AR, he did have, I think it was 6 for 56. Yeah, 3.9 yards per carry. And then, like I mentioned, that touchdown on the 4th down that kept the game extremely close or kept the Colts in the game, right? Because if they wouldn't have gotten it there, then CJ would have been backed up at his own goal line with the lead still, probably a 2-score lead, and then having to drive them out of there. So it is what it is. And I notice that I say it is what it is because, I mean, you can't change things. That's just the way it is, right? Another little nugget here from week 1, the Texans extend the Colts the Colts opening weekend losing streak to 11 years in a row. The Texans have not won. Not the Texans. The Colts have not won an opening game in 11 years, which is crazy if you think about it. So the guys doing their thing. It's Cricket Commish says both of your new offensive pieces, Mixon and Diggs, had great week 1s, right? Which one of the two do you think is more likely to sustain that throughout the season? All right, so good question. Hey, good evening, my good brother. GMM Network over there, Bogard. Shout out, man. Shout out. You should have bet the house on that stat. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so like I was talking about AR not being very efficient, but yeah, the 2 new pieces, Diggs and Mixon, if you see them right here in this Houston Jam t-shirt. And I do have a lot of these out for almost every team. And my brother Crooked Commission, if you head on over to neonpeacockmerch.com, you'll find a Rome Odunze shirt that I did have I made a couple of weeks ago. It says all throws lead to Rome. Go check that out. You just missed the sale. It ended yesterday, but I have about, I think I have one coming up at the end of the month, and there's usually 2 or 3 sales that I run periodically each month. So just be on the lookout for those, up to 40% off. $12.50 tees, but now they're back to the normal $22 regular price. But you go check those out for me when you do get a chance. But yeah, these 2 guys definitely did well. The question is, which one do I think is more likely to sustain that? I think the Texans are trying to establish a new identity for this season, and that's going to run through Joe Mixon. If you look at the way Cincinnati looked this last week, they looked like they desperately missed Joe Mixon. Zach Moss did find the end zone for a touchdown, but they were not necessarily a dominating factor. I think they were somewhere around 3 yards per carry as a team. Cincinnati was this last week in their matchup, and they just looked horrid out there. Obviously, they were missing a few wide receivers, but that should not reflect much on the run game. So Joe Mixon came out here and he showed up and showed out. He had a comment, I believe last week, when asked about something about Cincinnati, and he said, he didn't necessarily have to do them any favors. He was going to leave them out of the conversation, basically, just the way they left him high and dry. But so they didn't want to bring him back when I think that they should have. And the Texans went out, and as soon as they heard that they were going to be releasing Mixon, Caserio came out in an interview, I believe yesterday or the day before, saying that, the situation worked where they were after Saquon. They were going after Saquon. The price was driving really high. It wasn't going to work out. So they were still interested in bringing back Devin Singletary, who worked out really nicely for them at the end of the year. And then all of a sudden they hear this news that since he's going to, be releasing Sir Mix-a-Lot, right? And, thank you, Bogart. Appreciate that. Yeah, Sir Mix-a-Lot. Where is it at? Here we go. So,
like big butts and I cannot lie.
Yeah, so Cincinnati was going to be releasing Sir Mix-a-Lot. But the news came out after the 4 o'clock time frame, right? So that means nothing would be official until the following day. You roughly have like a 24-hour period, right, before you can make things official. And so what the Texans did said, hey, we're going to take this compensatory pick, number 7 rounder or whatever, and we're going to throw him at you, Cincy, and say, hey, does anything stick here? Do you want to go ahead and just trade Mixon for this pick since you're going to release him tomorrow anyway? And Cincinnati agreed. And, I don't think Joe Mixon took it too kindly. Like I said, he probably really loved his time there in Cincinnati, had a good he was part of that Super Bowl run, had a lot of experience. He was basically their workhorse and their best player for them last year while everybody else was hurt or missing time. And nothing much to show for it. The team didn't really reciprocate the love, I feel. So he kind of came out with that comment and said, he's going to leave them out there basically and not care about them or talk about them. It sounded like an so they asked him if he would like to face Cincinnati this year. And he's like, I'm going to leave that alone, just like the way they left me alone. So I think he kind of took that personally. And we saw it this weekend where he got 30 carries for 159 yards, like 170 all-purpose or plus yards if you count his 3 catches for 19. So I think that they're going to continue to try to feed him the rock, and the offense is going to run through him. I think that is way more sustainable than Stephon Diggs' 2 touchdowns on 6 receptions, 33 yards, right? And so I'll break all that stuff down here in a bit, but let me get right back to everybody in the chat. That's right. Sir Mix-a-Lot likes touchdowns. He cannot lie. He got in the end zone. And, I think if they weren't trying to appease Stephon Diggs so much, they probably would have ran him from the 1 yard line again later in the game. But, the play calling, Bobby Slowick was in his bag. He mixed it up really nice. A shout out to Derek, my man Derek, always, coming out and supporting the channel. Appreciate you, bro. He says this is going to be a tough matchup this week. Chicago D, they look tough, but y'all got so many playmakers. I don't even think they can keep up. Yeah, good. That's a good assessment. I do think that Chicago's defense really tough. We'll talk about them when we get there. But this should still be a good matchup, like I said, and something exciting to watch with young Caleb in his first year versus CJ Stroud. Hopefully, these guys are in the league for a long time. So salute to Tino. Hey, man, what's up, man? What's going on? What's a good team? And Derek says that he got that. I got that Houston Jam shirt on today. We're talking Diggs and Mixon in this question right now. So, I do think that Joe Mixon will be able to sustain this a lot more. He's not going to be able to get 30 carries and completely dominate all the time, but the offensive line looked good. Let's talk about Joe Mixon getting into the second level a little bit. And I have graphics, and I just keep forgetting to pull them up because I'm so interested in what you guys are saying in the chats. But I was still kind of talking about CJ and A-Rich, but we kind of moved on into Mixon. So we'll bounce it around. But he was named the week 1, I believe, offensive player of the week. There's Joe Mixon, 159 rush yards, 19 receiving yards, and his TD. He looked absolutely phenomenal in his debut opening week, offensive player of the week. And there's a nice graphic from the admin in H-Town. So, and he was also the yards gained from scrimmage leader. Here's a stat brought to you by the 33rd team. Thank you guys. Powered by GameBridge. So even amongst all playmakers, we're talking wide receivers and whatnot, you know, he outdid the waiver wire wonder or pickup, I guess, or I picked him up actually free right before the game, Jordan Mason. J.K. Dobbins, super efficient, his 10 carries for 139 yards. Jamison Williams putting up the 134 on 9 targets. Of course, Saquon Barkley found the end zone a couple more times on those 132 all scrimmage yards. And Tyreek had a bone to pick after being arrested early that morning with his 130. So Alec Pierce on 3 catches makes the list. 3 catches, 3 targets, 125 yards, and a touchdown. Totally not sustainable, but great week 1 for him. Like I said, don't want to take anything away from what the Colts were trying to do, but they didn't do, and that was get a win, right? So I got something for them here, though. Where is it? There you go.
Gotcha, bitch.
So we can do this for the Colts real quick. All right, that's enough. That's all they deserve. So, like I said, Joe Mixon doing it. He even hit the sneeze here. Love that dance. He was able to basically lower his shoulder and punish defenders every time he got the football. He was finishing runs really strong. That's a real D'Amico Ryans type style, the way he was running the football. So I just really, really love the way that they came out here and did stuff. The offensive line looked great. Hey, Kojo, what's up? Salute. That's what you got to say here. Barkley goated. Regret trading Mixon for Barkley, though. Yeah. I mean, right? Out of nowhere. So if you drafted Mixon, you got him really late in your drafts, probably like a 4th, 5th rounder, kind of like that running back dead zone area. But he was able to basically turn this week 1 around. And I think this is something that's very sustainable. And I was going to talk about the way he was finishing runs. He had a good vision. He'd stop, pivot, hit the hole. So really, he looked really good, really smooth. There wasn't many tackles behind the line of scrimmage, and wasn't much contact at or before the line of scrimmage either. So I do think that this is something that will continue moving forward. Kenyon Green looked great, guys. I don't know if you guys know who Kenyon Green is, but he's the right guard from the Texans. 1st round draft pick a couple years ago. Didn't have a lot of opportunities to get on the field and show people much because he was hurt a lot of the times, getting in and off and whatever. This last offseason, put in the work, showed that he was there, that he was committed, and it showed up in preseason, it showed up in practices, and then it was able to translate to week 1 on the field. He allowed like 0 pressures, had one of the highest lineman run and pass blocking grades in the entire NFL. So something that just came to fruition 3 years down the line. One of your former number 1 overall draft picks who you think was a bust, kind of coming around and turning the corner there. Should really help the Texans run the football and protect CJ Stroud as well. So I really like that. I wish I had a graphic for him and his correct numbers, but if you go look on PFF, I think he was one of the highest rated offensive linemen this last weekend. So shout out to Kenyon Green, everybody. Let's go back to the chat real quick. T Hill got 2 speeding tickets in one day. Yeah, 1 in the streets and 1 in the field. No kidding. And if you think that Tyreek Hill's fast, Nico Collins actually recorded the fastest MPHs for a ball carrier or non-ball carrier. Sorry, he hit 21 miles per hour on that long 50-yard reception down the sidelines there. So 21 miles per hour. Nico Collins. I mentioned it in the preseason that he had been kind of leveling up and working on his speed and really turning into a yak guy as well. So he kind of showed that he is the de facto number 1 in a lot of certain categories. Also because he has that prototypical build, but. We'll get to the receivers here in a second. Let me bring down, or let's see if I have any more. I think those are all the Joe Mixon slides I have. I do have here's basically like a breakdown as far as percentages of snap percentages per team. So if you look on the far left, you have the RB1 for each team, and then their snap percentage, and then the number of carries and targets. And then in the middle column, you have the RB2 for the team, and then the 3rd RB for the team. If you go all the way down to Houston, which is somewhere there in the middle, right after Josh Jacobs and in between Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon at a 71% snap share, but the 30 carries really stand out. Only Jordan Mason comes in anywhere close with 28. And then the next closest guy, Ramonster Stevenson with 25, and then Saquon with 24. So the usage is really good. You love to see that. I know it's not all these snaps, but if you're getting 30 carries, you might as well get them off the field for a couple of breathers. And when you have a bunch of awesome wide receivers, when you go empty, why would you want Joe Mixon out there? But yeah, that's it for Mixon. Kudos to him, man. I had to start off the podcast just giving him his flowers. Shout out to Sir Mix-a-Lot. Great stuff. You love to see it. The one thing I did want to talk about with him was like I mentioned, he was getting hit at or before the line of scrimmage. He was getting into that second level past the linebackers and then really laying a hit on the secondary. The secondary guys, Juju Brents and Jalen Jones and Nick Cross. So Nick Cross is the free safety and Jalen Jones is the corner. Jalen Jones had 13 tackles. Nick Cross had 14 tackles. So 27 tackles between those two guys on particularly like one side of the field when runs were coming up. And then the rest of the Colts secondary, which means the other strong safety and corner, with all those guys combined, they had 42 tackles. The Colts secondary had to have 42 tackles. I'd imagine that 30 of those were on Joe Mixon, except for the one touchdown, right? He didn't get tackled there. He got into the end zone. So 29 of those probably all coming from guys in the secondary. Like I mentioned, Joe Mixon saw that, lowered his shoulder, and he was running the shit over some of these guys, really making them hurt. Towards the end of the game, they weren't wanting to tackle Joe Mixon. I think that's why he was able to pound the rock into the end zone. Salute to Mixon, man. And I think he's talking about Nico Collins. Yeah, he has some nasty speed that you weren't aware of. Definitely, CJ Stroud, if you go back and look at that, he left that one up there. He underthrew it so bad. That would have been a 70-yard touchdown if he had a little more oomph on that. If he had Anthony Richardson's arm, let's just put it that way. But CJ's still extremely accurate, though, so I'll take that over Anthony Richardson's rocket any day. And CJ also did a really good job of moving around in the pocket, extending plays, buying time, throwing across his body, which you should never, ever, ever do unless you're CJ Stroud, right? And he found Nico Collins over the middle of the field on that. So really, really good stuff from them. I think I missed a comment earlier. Here we go. West Virginia Mountains, shout out. Texans will be fine as long as Stroud doesn't stand on the hash mark and throw a pass underhand to the flats. Bears are good at defending that play. Okay, yeah, put it in the notes. I'm sure he saw the film. He's got that one in his back pocket. Derek, you need Tank Dell to take off this week? Hey, don't worry about it. Let's go into some stats here about the receivers just to help you feel a little bit better about Tank Dell and the usage. So we'll start off at the top right. We talked about that's Joe Mixon. Start off at the top right. So I believe Stephon Diggs only needed one more reception or three more receptions to hit the 10,000 career. Three more yards. There we go. To hit the 10,000 career receiving yards mark, and he did that on his first reception. They did make a big deal about it in the stadium because they were obviously playing in Indy. But if you're watching the broadcast from the Houston side, they did talk about that momentarily. So 10,000 career receiving yards for Stephon Diggs. Congratulations. But he only had 33 receiving yards on 6 catches. So the A-dot relatively short. He hovered around the line of scrimmage like I thought. Short crossers. Basically played the other tight end role across from Dalton Schultz. This is my take on this, right? They did move him around a little bit, inside, outside, a lot of motion stuff. And on one of his particular touchdowns, he was lined up outside, and then they ran two out routes, and he just kind of cut underneath it and allowed the space to clear up. So lots of spacing, really good play calling by Bobby Slowick. Slowick was in his bag, creating space. CJ Stroud had a meh game, to be honest. This is not one of his better games. I thought that he looked not good. I thought he looked good. I just didn't think that he looked like the way I had expected him to come out in week 1 and just be on it, right? So he left a couple of throws underthrown, right, for some of his receivers, but they were still able to come down with it. He did later on towards the end of the game start heating up and hit Nico Collins with a beautiful out route on 3rd and 11 that the announcers thought was broken up. And that's how crazy that he snuck that in there. And Nico was able to get a knee in and basically seal the game there on that particular catch. But nobody in the NFL really makes that throw unless I think like you're Aaron Rodgers 10 years ago or Patrick Mahomes like now. But CJ Stroud and Nico Collins had a great connection on that one. The Freako, believe it or not, guys, this was not a pass interference, and Nico caught the ball on this play. So great stuff from him there. This is the play where he reached over 21 miles per hour, streaking down the left sideline. But here is the breakdown that's going to help Derek feel a little bit better about himself. Here are the air yards, the calculated air yards. Nico Collins, 130. Tank Dell, 116. Now, he only had 40 receiving yards, so the unrealized air yards were all there. And then if you look at Stephon Diggs' actual air yards, 10. So sell high on Stephon Diggs off of the 2-touchdown game right now. Will he get peppered with targets? Yes. Is he going to get a lot of yards? Probably not. Will they look for him near the goal line? Depends on the package, depends on the situation, depends on the rotation, depends on what Slowick's trying to do. So is his number sustainable? No, this is a sell high situation for me. Look at those air yards by Tank Dell. We're seeing the same stuff that we saw last year. These were just connections that didn't happen for CJ Stroud. He missed Tank on his worst throw of the game. He threw it like 5 yards short on an out route that Tank had him beat on. I don't know if Tank extended the play or CJ was super anticipating the break like way before it happened. Either way, the ball came out super early. Tank broke maybe 5 yards behind where the ball landed. So really weird stuff, but he was open. Tank Dell's open a lot. There was several, if you go back and watch the film, and there's several plays where he's looking and like he just doesn't pull the trigger. So I feel like CJ had a meh game. If he was a little more confident or let the ball go, he would have found Tank on a couple of wide open plays or even a long touchdown. Now, granted, Tank was being covered in the slot by the best secondary guy for the Colts in Kenny Moore, and he still had 3 receptions, 40 yards, 2 carries for 19. So the utilization was there. And like I said, I think he had 7 targets, so 9 total opportunities for Tank. There was 8 targets, I believe, for Nico, 6 targets for Stephon. So they were all relatively close in a game where you saw Joe Mixon take over and have 33 total touches, and the Texans dominated the time of possession by running the football. So this is a game where CJ Stroud only threw 32 passes regardless, and necessarily wasn't, firing on all cylinders because they were leaning on Joe Mixon. So this is a relatively modest game. This is something you could probably expect on a really decent week. But if the Texans really explode, really start firing on all cylinders, I'd still expect to see the pecking order fall this way. Either Tank Dell or Nico Collins trading off at the top, Stephon Diggs being an ancillary piece who gets a touchdown if they get inside the 10, So, and not only that, Derek, though, on these 2 plays, Stephon Diggs ended up getting the touchdowns, but there was 2 red zone targets for Tank Dell that CJ Stroud did not connect on it with. So if those would have come down, he would have had the touchdown. He would have been a lot happier with the day as well. You wouldn't have been happy with Stephon Diggs if he wouldn't have caught those 2 touchdowns. So that's just something to consider there, and I hope that kind of eases your mind about Tank Dell and still playing him in the flex. They are going to go against the really good Chicago Bears defense, but I think CJ Stroud will be up to the task at home this time. Let's check back in with what you guys are talking about here in the comments. Let's see. Work league started Tank, didn't get much, but still won. Yeah, Jamo got you the win. I sat Jamo for Tank, and, I lost it by 1 point in that league. Do I hate Tank? No. Do I hate Jamo? Probably. Am I going to chase the points? Probably not. I think I'm going to still start Tank this week, and if Jamo does it again, then shame on me, and then I'll flip it around, right? So I want all 3 to go off. Yeah, I own all 3. I don't have Diggs. I have the other 2 rostered almost everywhere and exclusively in dynasties because people were not on them 2 years ago. And, I scooped them up because I just had a good feeling. So it is what it is. Hey, appreciate you stopping by, man. Appreciate you stopping by. I'll probably still be around here rocking. So listen in the car while you're driving, baby. That's what's up, man. Yeah. All right, so yeah, all these guys doing their work, doing their thing. Here's some metrics here. Here's the week 1 receiver EPA versus success rate when they were targeted. So, and it's a minimum of 7 targets, so you're not going to see Stephon Diggs on this chart. But if you look at the very tippy top, you have Godwin, Devonta Smith out there, actually. Nico Collins right on par with that nice dotted line that you like to see. So that's that's the good stuff. Obviously, Godwin had a killer game as well versus a lowly secondary over there, but it is what it is. Rashee Rice looking good. Isaiah Likely with a huge game, still not even close to where Nico Collins is, right? So you do look at George Pickens. That looks nice, to be honest, and that's kind of surprising. But then towards the middle of the graph there, you got some good names. Justice Hill, Tyreek Hill, Dortch, A-Chain, Tank Dell. There's a Cowboy there, and I just can't tell who it is. I'd imagine I don't see CD anywhere, so that's probably CD. And then you got Cup there. And then you got a couple of Bears right behind that. So yeah, just interesting to see. But Jamo still on the far right quadrant, although it is on the lower portion. And so that would be the success rate. His success rate's a little bit lower, but the EPA is there. So just some good stuff to look at. I like looking at these numbers. And then here's something interesting, and here's a tidbit from Jack Reinert. And this was just written 2 days ago. Stephon Diggs had 3 catches on 3 targets in the red zone, all of which were by design. So he is going to be a red zone threat. But those design plays could rotate. Like I said, we're trying to appease the guy who had the least amount of yardage at this point in the game. In the Texans' 4 red zone pass attempts, Diggs was on the field for all 4, while Collins and Dell were each on the field for 3. So just 1 less each for them, right? Interestingly, though, however, both Collins and Diggs each got an opportunity in 2 wide receiver sets in the red zone. So they alternated. So you're not seeing Tank Dell necessarily cede any snaps to anyone. And then he just adds that he's interested to see how the red zone receiver usage progresses in the future. But for now, it does look like Stephon Diggs is that permanent fixture in those situations. And then here's another nice little graph right here. And here's the week 1 EPA per play in and out of the red zone that we just talked about. And this is by team, right? Excluding Monday night's performance by the San Francisco 49ers. And then you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just overachieving over there in the upper right hand quadrant, as well as the Saints. But then you have your Texans, Vikings, and then your Lions, Eagles, and even the Patriots there. And right in the middle of the graph, really nice, is the Dolphins. But look at them Buffalo Bills way out over here in the non-red zone area, kind of killing it, but hovering right around the red zone. So just outside of that. So this is a good indication of how teams are going to be in the red zone and their success rate. So the upper right-hand quadrant, this is just based off of week 1, obviously. And this is also from Jack Reiner from the FF Ballers data. But this is kind of like the teams in the middle and then towards the right are the teams that you're kind of going to want to look at to hopefully score more or just have some more success per play in these areas when they get close to the red zone. And then here is the week 1 rusher EPA success rate. And then obviously Joe Mixon just really looking really nice there on that graph. Derrick Henry was up there, obviously didn't get the amount of touches that we'd want in that game script though, but Lamar Jackson ahead of him, obviously. Jameer Gibbs looking good. Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones, surprisingly, the Vikings had a really good game. J.K. Dobbins as well. The EPA, the success rate a little bit lower there. So you may want to worry about that. That's probably the efficiency metric because he did all that damage on just 10 carries. And then Jaden Daniels kind of leading the pack. But look at David Montgomery, and that's probably mostly off of his fresh legs in overtime, just putting the team on his back and carrying the Lions to that OT victory. But really good stuff there. Good metrics. Appreciate Jack Reinert's free charts that I stole because that's how things become free. But let's check in with everybody else in the chat. Let's see. Hey, salute, Sean. Appreciate you for showing up, bro. What's going on? What's up, Steamboat? Steamboat in the house. Diamond Joe, man. What's up? What's up? So appreciate everybody. Like I said, make sure you're hitting the like, subscribe, tell your friends. I got a lot of good stuff here. I don't just talk Houston Texans. I'm dropping all the damn good stuff. Yeah, it's definitely free for me. That's how I do it. And it's free for you guys who come over here and look at that. It's up on the internet. So if it's on the internet, he's fine with me taking a screenshot and just using it briefly. And I'm giving him the credit that he deserves. So good work there, Mr. Reiner. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's take a swig. This is a LaCroix, by the way. Not that anybody's interested, but it is what I'm sipping on at the moment. We're 45 minutes in. Let's take a brief break to check in with our sponsor, neonpeacockmerch.com. Oh, shoot. Where's my video? No, I don't have it uploaded here. Hold on. We can do it this way. Wake your game up. Here we go. So make sure you guys are checking out all the good stuff at neonpeacockmerch.com, our good sponsor here at the show. There it is up on the top, neonpeacockmerch.com, where you can get fly, gear, shirts, stickers, and much more. Not just t-shirts, but great artwork, framed artwork. I don't have any around, but like a framed piece of art, something like similar to this. You can hang it up on your wall. So that being said, let's continue. More news here for the Texans, right? Here's the recent injury report. Not too many guys. Dalton Schultz did not practice today with an ankle, so if he doesn't go, look for someone like Brevin Jordan to maybe step up. He's more of our Y tight end, the guy who kind of splits out, runs routes, not necessarily known for his blocking. So Cade Stover, however, the rookie, wasn't targeted, didn't catch any passes, but played in the fullback position quite often, and was credited by Joe Mixon for doing a great, tremendous job blocking. So look for Cade Stover to be on the field primarily now as a blocker, but playing in the fullback position. But that'll earn him more snaps moving forward. So if you did draft him, looking really promising because he's already getting on the field. He did have rapport with CJ Stroud. We do know that he can catch passes and be athletic. So Dalton Schultz dealing with an ankle injury. We might see Brevin Jordan elevated to a pass catching role, be out on the field a little bit more, but we might see somebody like Cade Stover, who blocks really well, leapfrog him as far as being the inline tight end who plays most of the snaps. So just be on the lookout for that with that. And MJ Stewart still not practicing. He was the only Texan who missed last week. Other than that, we've been pretty fully healthy. I know that Will Anderson was coming off his ankle thing, so did have some pressures, didn't get home with any sacks, and neither did Daniil Hunter, but the Texans still were able to sack AR twice with their interior defensive line, who's going to be missing Danico Autry for another 5 games. But, if other guys can step up like that, like Mario Edwards, I believe he had 3 tackles and a sack. If those guys can continue to do things like that for the Texans, then the D-line should be really, really good. You need that Jamo shirt, right? Yeah, we'll get that going. Don't worry. We got it. Let's see here. What do we got? The slogan. Can we just smoke that blunt? That's right, Dan. I got you. Don't worry. Been pretty busy, Derek. A lot of graphics going on. I did a whole bunch of stuff earlier today, and then shooting promo videos and and preparing for the show and doing GWN and all the other stuff that we got going on. It's football season. It is busy, but if you're busy, you're blessed, man. You're staying busy, you're blessed. So I wouldn't have it any other way right now. Shout out to Crooked Commish, man. Make sure you are liking and subscribing and checking us out. We do cover all other types of stuff here, the H-Town Huddle, specifically Houston, but you're going to get a whole mess of different kind of fantasy things with Wake Your Game Up show. We also have a Saints podcast. We have Spencer the Guru's Power Hour. We got a whole mess of stuff on here that we have the playmakers, and then we have our watch parties as well. So if you're ever on the road, you can't get to the game, you just need to listen in and figure out what's going on YouTube. We got your back. So what are our thoughts on what are my thoughts on A-Chain? So I have A-Chain. I have him rostered in a lot of leagues. If you are worried about him being an injury risk, then you could probably sell high because he did have a good game. I know that he is a little bit banged up. So if he gets through this healthy and plays another one, and I know it's a big if, like you're saying, then yeah, I would be inclined to maybe. It just depends on what you're going to get in return. Yeah, he's probably like a 2nd round pick. So if you can do something lateral in the 2nd round, maybe go after a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who had a really down game. I know he salvaged his fantasy day with a touchdown, but he'll have much better days than his 48 rushing yards that he had on 16 carries. So I'd expect them to just have better days. The Texans were a top 10 run stopping defense last season. So I think that kind of carried over this year, and we saw that in particular, not against the quarterback, right, who it's a little bit different. He'll drop back and scramble on broken plays. They're not necessarily all designed. So it's just a little bit of a difference, but hope I answered your question there. Hey, shout out Mo Beasy. He said Houston's interior D-line versus Chicago's interior O-line will be a good matchup. Yeah, most likely. That's where the stuff's going to be. I think that the stuff to watch is the battle in the trenches a little bit. Trying to see if I have nuggets on the O-line or D-line, but the Bears' defense basically won the game for them last week, right? In those regards. But let me see if I can wrap up everything that I was talking about with the Colts as far as the Nuggets and some of the graphics that I had to pull up for you guys. And I think I did, to be honest, because now we're just getting into we are moving into the other portion of the podcast, which would be the Chicago stuff. Just real quick, though, after week 1, the Texans rank second in total yards per game, first in rushing yards per game, first in time of possession, and 7th in points per game. So the offense looked pretty good on the road in Indianapolis this first week. No sophomore slump, like I mentioned, for C.J. Stroud. He's going to come out firing. Hopefully puts up a better performance. I think that he was a little rusty, and he mentioned it in a press conference. Everybody's a little bit rusty. Coming off, the off season and whatnot. So it's just good to see some live full game action and then obviously come out with the win, right? So I did mention that Schultz missed practice, and now we can get to some other stuff on the injury or corresponding moves. But a huge shout out also to our general manager, Nick Caserio, man. The guy is just doing work, bro, just doing work. But getting snubbed here in these rankings by Pro Football something or other. Howie Roseman, you got to give credit to these guys, right? And Veach, never even heard of them, but yeah, they have all these championships, right? So he must be doing something right. And then the list goes down. But I think Caserio getting snubbed here on this list, it doesn't matter to him. He'd rather just have the trophies at the end of the year. But to us Texans fans, I want to say we appreciate you, Mr. Vest, Mr. Puffy Vest, and all you do for the Houston Texans. And he's so knowledgeable about everything, all the positions, the matchups. He's down on the field. He's throwing passes with the players. He goes to church with some of these guys. So it's just really cool to see somebody that invested. I know our old general managers over the last 20 years are just kind of in and out. And then we had Bill O'Brien, right? So Rick Smith, unfortunately, had to leave when his wife got cancer and step away. So that was kind of what put Bill O'Brien in all that mess as well. But the fans weren't too kind to Mr. Smith when he left either, saying that, he wasn't that great. But I think that they failed to realize the great job that he was doing holding it all together before the Texans completely crumbled and had to rebuild from scratch, right? So kudos to, like I said, once more, Nick Caserio for coming in, doing his thing, and getting the ship turned around. So, and obviously that goes with hiring D'Amico, the ownership, Cal and Hannah McNair, and then, lucking into CJ Stroud, basically. So this rebuild cannot be duplicated, and that's why it's so fast. It's a little part luck, a little part good management and ownership. So like I said, just got to give credit where credit's due. So really thankful for that, because I was at a point where I was already like, man, I'm going to put a paper bag over my head or maybe not watch the games, right? But we've pulled ourselves up from the bootstraps, and here we are. So thanks to all of those guys. But in some surprising news, the Texans have placed cornerback Jeff Okudah on the IR with a hip injury. This is a guy I think they gave like $1 million to or whatever, just to kind of try out with the Henderson fella who got cut or released before. I believe that the Texans rookie picks, Kalen Bullock and Kamari Lassiter, are really working out for them. They like what they see. So that in a corresponding move, the Texans went ahead and signed Rashad Weaver, the linebacker, from their practice squad, which I think helps because, Christian Harris probably still not returning from IR. You at least have like a defensive end / stand-up or roaming linebacker. Guys I think they call them spinners. He can probably like stand up and rush, looking, like over the middle of the field, the A-gap kind of thing or whatever, right? So we'll see if they use him in any capacity or if he's just a depth piece. But, that is what that is. And I did mention that the Texans will be wearing the iced out uniform, this being brought to you by Uniform Tracker. So white on white on white, it should look really good with a Navy helmet. And excited to see that combo, I guess, being broken out for the first time, although the Texans did wear the white uniforms this last week. Now jumping into the Chicago game. Here's the early line alert for Bears and Texans. You'll see it at the very bottom, and it's a 45.5 over-under, which is still pretty decent. I think the Texans over-under this last week was 48.5, so not bad. But the implied touchdown differential, the -6.5, the Texans, is fairly large. It's basically the same for the Cowboys versus the Saints or the Ravens over the Raiders. Well, not necessarily. I'm sorry, the Chiefs over the Bengals with the Bengals' lackluster performance this last week. The Ravens line is extremely huge over the Raiders. I guess there's just no belief there, but that's funny. Let's see. The Barracuda was the former first-round pick. Yeah, he was a former first-round pick, could never stay healthy, and now just can't perform. I think that these young bucks that the Texans have now, like I said, I didn't see much from them, but the coaching staff was treating both of these players basically like veterans, not letting them get preseason reps. keeping them away from the media for once. And then these guys are just like really look like they just come in and work. If you look at Kamari Lassiter, he has like zero drip, bro. It's one iced out chain. And then he plays with no pads, no sleeves, no wrists, no tape, nothing. Like bare hand, like old school. So crazy. Like it's kind of weird to see. You look at it and you're like, it looks off. Is he going to practice? And at the same time, it's a little scary because, he's all business, right? And then Caitlin Bullock, the free safety who got some rotational work this last week, got a pick. The Texans' only pick of the game, caused a turnover in the red zone for the Texans, which, essentially helped lead to this victory. So, I do like what they have there. And I like Bullock over guys like Ward. I know he's the guy in the box and he's D'Amico's guy, but he was in and out of the lineup last year. He had one interception to help us beat the Broncos at one point. But other than that, he's a good communicator, directs the defense. But other than that, I don't really see how he's helping us if he's going to be getting mossed and then beat deep by guys like Alec Pierce. The fact that it made it look like it was Derek Stingley's fault that touchdown went over it or whatever. That should have been our man Ward, over the top. He sees the route, can't get on top of it to help Stingley. Stingley realizes it and just kind of tails his receiver all the way, trying to make a beeline and almost makes a play still. He has that great closing speed, but just wasn't enough for that rocket arm of AR there. Let's see. That's one of those African-American babies Sandra Bullock adopted back in the day, all grown up now. I forgot she did that, dude. I totally forgot that she did that. That is hilarious. Give him a ding, folks. Give him a ding. In other news, though, the Texans, a lot of these guys that we've been talking about, picks traded up to get Will Anderson, Tank Dell, H2O, Christian Harris, Kenyon Green, Will Anderson Jr. Did I already say that? All that was possible by trading away Deshaun Watson.
Hello, ladies.
Thank goodness he's gone, folks. Defraud Watscomb in hot water again. Facing another lawsuit, another allegation, apparently. And now the Browns are trying to get out of that monstrous contract that they had to eat in that trade. The dumb idiots. The Browns are going to continue to brown, guys. They're going to brown. Massage Watson. That's correct. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It's so crazy because I thought we were done with it, honestly. And then every other week or like every 3 months, somebody like updates the graphic and they're like, oh, they used another one of these picks to trade, for 3 more picks. So it still ends up being, there's still some residual. I know that was a bad choice of words, but there's still some of that left over from the Watson, whatever he touched there. And now they're trying to trade back for Joe Flacco. I know, that's so crazy. And go ahead and do it, because if that happens, when Anthony Richardson does get hurt, sorry, I said I wasn't going to talk smack, and here I go. But then the Colts won't have a backup quarterback that's able to keep the ship steering the ship, I guess. Or I don't know what the analogy I'm trying to go for there is, but you know what I mean. You get it. But yeah. Any questions from the chat so I can play this one? Whatever he touched, yeah. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Oh man. But yeah, it's an interesting situation there that keeps developing for Deshaun Watson. I heard a crazy rumor that while he was in Houston, Bill O'Brien was using the Clemson playbook so that he could have success. He was just changing up a little bit of the terminology. We do know that Bill O'Brien had a lot of experience between the college ranks coming back and forth and coaching offenses there. So I could see that. Deshaun Watson has never been as good as he was in the 4 years that he was in Houston, where he posted like 104 passer rating or whatever it is, because I don't know what happened, but he does not look the same as he did when he was in college and his first couple of seasons in Houston. But like I said, good riddance to bad rubbish.
Bitch.
So let's really jump in. Oh, before I do though, H2O was the leading tackler with 7. Kaimi Fairbairn was solid gold from +50. He killed it. Mechie and Cam Akers were both coaches' decisions, inactives or healthy scratches. So maybe just a personnel thing, game plan thing, who knows? I do think that both of them can be good contributors to this squad down the line, or even next week. It just depends, on how they plan on using them. I think Mechie is really good. Hutchinson only had one catch for 3 yards, so it's not like, when they're getting in there, they're going to make a huge difference. I do think that Hutchinson's been a little more consistent, and therefore that's why he was active and Mechie wasn't. Damian Pierce looked decent with the minimal touches that he got, kind of just falling and finding a hole. But I think if that was Cam Akers, he might have been able to do more with it. But, coach's decision, they like Damian there, and it is what it is. If you were able to hold on to him as a backup, then he still has value, and you may be able to get out of that soon. Wait for him to blow up or have a game where he comes in and breaks off a long run and then try to trade him away. Because Joe Mixon, I think, is here to stay. Bogart from the chat. John Gruden used to do the QB class for the rookies, and he said Watson was the black Peyton Manning as far as diagnosing defenses. Wow. And now we all know how Chucky turned out, so maybe his judge of character isn't the greatest. Yeah. Maybe he was just saying that to be nice. Who knows? Try to make it get his image up or whatever. But I do remember those QB classes that he would do. He'd get all weird with these guys and get all and ask them questions and stuff, geek out a little bit too hard. He would get off on that stuff. So it's kind of a turn off to watch him grilling these QBs like that. But still interesting nonetheless. And I did talk about the nightmare fuel, and they actually didn't end up doing anything much other than just pressuring and allowing the interior defensive line to get after them. But, they were able to contain the pocket, I think, pretty well, considering that Anthony Richardson rushed for over 8 times, right? Or 9 times. How many rushes did he have? He had quite a few rushes, right? And considering that, they do need to work on they're collapsing the pocket. They just need to work on getting home. There was 2 plays in a row where Daniel and Will both hit Anthony Richardson's arm on a pass, and it caused 2 incompletions. So they almost got home, almost didn't. Maybe could have caused the fumble. So the D-line was, like I said, collapsing the pocket. They just need to work on getting home now and finishing those plays. But I think that they did a pretty decent job of at least containing Anthony Richardson. It could have been a lot worse. I saw the Texans last year and seasons before where running quarterbacks would just destroy them. So it's good to see them cleaning some of that stuff up now and being a little bit better. I know they allowed 27 points, but like I mentioned, most of that or almost all of that came on 3 big plays. So, make sure you guys are heading over to my YouTube channel. I do have highlight videos that I custom did for Nico Collins, Tank Dell, guys like that, and I'm continuing to throw some of those together. I have a really cool one of Nico Collins set to 2003 Madden, 2007 Madden soundtrack highlights. So I'll give you like a quick 20-second glimpse. All right, I got a little too pumped up there. I could have kept watching that for 7 more minutes, but go ahead and check out anything on my channel. I do have a bunch of cool stuff like that. And if you guys got any graphics or video stuff that you want to do, go ahead and hit me up on the DMs or any way you can get in contact with me. Check out my stuff at neonpeacockmerch.com. I do commissions, and if you want a design that you want on a shirt, just hit me up. I'll put it up on the website just like Derek did in the comments, and we'll get it up there for you. Next one is going to be Jamo. What is it? There's the comment, something about smoking a blunt, but it's going to be on there, baby. Yes, sir, Derek. Appreciate you. That's right. Yeah, so I do got all that stuff over on the channel. I do those things occasionally, and there will be some highlight stuff probably around week 4. I'll gather a bunch of clips from that, and we'll throw the first month of the Texans on there. That way you guys have some good stuff to look at while we're on the podcast, right? Getting back to it, man, I'm so hyped. Nico Collins had a great week. So super hyped for this next week. Football's back, baby. It's awesome. All right. So let's see if we can dig into, and I know I've been saying it right, digging into the game. I know that the Texans are favored relatively heavily. Oh, shoot. I missed this about Nico Collins when we were talking about him, though. So highest graded wide receivers week 1, there's Chris Godwin. Tyler Lockett had a really high grade. Jaden Reed, obviously. Alec Pierce on his 3 receptions. And there's Nico Collins at his 87.2, but just above Rashee Rice and Tyreek Hill. So really great company for this first week. Like I said, you can kind of see the outlier name up there in Alec Pierce when I was talking about this. So I don't see that that's going to continue to happen. And, if you drafted A-Rich, like I said, this is probably one of his ceiling games. So you could, still turn around and trade him for some really, really good stuff. I think people are going to be really hyped after seeing this, but I don't think that it's sustainable. And his style of play, I think, could still have him look to get injured. He did get slammed pretty hard, and his helmet came off on one of the sacks, and officials aren't going to be like keen to throwing a flag on a 6'4", 250-pound quarterback, because these guys are going to have to get him to the ground somehow, and a lot of times it's going to be violently, right? So I don't think that any of that stuff is going to look like roughing when the quarterback's twice the size of the defender. And Cam Newton didn't get those calls, right? And so it just happens. Daniel Jones ain't getting those calls. That's what happens when you're a running quarterback. You put your body out there on the line. So it happens. Hey, what up? What up, Huss, man? Appreciate you, man. Shout out, man. Appreciate you stopping by, dude. Cool deal. Yo, what is going on, Cowbell? What is up, man? Josh Downs will be back soon. Yeah, be on the lookout for that. I heard that he did practice today. So good stuff. Let's see. Moving along. Boom. Yeah, Derek's on the road. Yeah, drive safe, man. Drive safe. All right, good stuff. Appreciate you guys, man. Goodness. But back to the Chicago game, right? Hold on, let me see here. Here we are. So here's some nuggets for week 2 Chicago. Like I mentioned, this will be the first Sunday night football game that the Texans play in 5 years. So getting that primetime love finally. Chicago week 2, there will be some opposite strengths that we talked about here. So the Texans kind of shaky covering Anthony Richardson out of the pocket this last week. I think that's where Caleb Williams could do some damage if they choose to, or if he chooses to maybe tuck the ball instead of keeping his eyes downfield and extending plays to the point where he gets sacked and makes a mistake. I think that he can, like I said, if he's a little more decisive, or if the Bears play calling changes a little bit and they decide to run some more orchestrated quarterback keepers or whatever, some intentionally called ones, then maybe they can find the Texans sleeping on a couple of those occasions. I know that they're a little banged up, and that's probably why the line is at -6.5 for the Texans, right? But anything can happen. You're not supposed to take any opponent lightly. And I think the Texans will stay hyped up for this one because it is the home opener, and Houston should be rocking, right? Let's talk a little bit about the Bears defense, right? So last week, the Bears basically won it all on their defense and special teams. I think they had a block, punt, scoop, and score. So that's a special team one there. And then former Texan, I keep forgetting his first name, DeAndre Carter, was the return man setting up the Bears for great field position. Now, DeAndre Carter, the way I remember him, is fumbling our entire fucking Super Bowl run away versus the Chiefs that started a snowball avalanche effect of things. Because he, for some reason, decided to bring the kickoff out of the end zone and then fumble on the 10-yard line, giving the Chiefs their first touchdown. And then after that, we never scored. So fuck DeAndre Carter. Sorry. Anyways, don't like the guy. DeAndre Carter, born in San Jose. Well, there you go. Good for him. But yeah, he also fumbled last week in the special teams game. So he's a double-edged sword. So I don't mind kicking it to him. I don't think that he'll be much of an issue. The Texans special teams kind of disappointed me last week in allowing their punt to get blocked. I think we have one of the better punters in the game, and Tommy Townsend, who could have, and I said right before the damn punt, I was like, here we go, let's flip field position. And sure enough, it ended up flipping field position for the Colts. So it is what it is. Attended Sacramento State. All right, man. Did you go to school with him or what, Cowbell? Oh, okay. Here we go. DeAndre Carter is my boy, little brother, for real. All right. Well, tell him I said fuck you for screwing us over, man. He basically ruined H-Town's playoff win and Super Bowl aspirations. At least the champion, an AFC championship appearance. Jesus. Man. Where's that guy? It's like, I don't have a fuck anybody thing, but a sound effect, but I wish I did. Let's see. What do I got? Let's do this. DeAndre Carter.
What the fuck was that?
That's close enough. Oh, man. He was a substitute teacher in 2016. Okay. Yeah. I think that's like right before. We probably picked him up from we drafted him straight out of Martin Luther King Middle School. Man, this is awesome. That's good stuff to know, honestly. I'm learning things right here. Good deal. And I only brought him up because he did pretty well for Chicago this last week, and he's a former kick and punt returner for the Texans as well, and a fill-in like slot receiver or whatever it was from time to time when Will Allfuller was always hurt with some sort of finger injury or whatever it is. So, but yeah, so last week they held Will Levis to 127 yards passing, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. So I don't know if that's a Will Levis thing or the defense is really good, but I think it's a little bit of both. I'm not discounting Chicago's defense at all. I think they're a really nice group out there that, has the opportunity to, if they can stop the run, put the Texans in a longer down and distance, and they can pin their ears back and be effective. But I don't see that happening. I think that the Texans run game should oppose its will. I think it's the other way around. When you flip the offense and the defense, I think that the Bears defense is the one that's going to try. It's definitely going to try to do what it's meant to do and stop that run. I think that the interior line there is going to be the battle to watch, as mentioned earlier. But like I said, Mixon looked really good, and Texans front was actually working very well cohesively as a run unit. And like I said, they had the most scrimmage yards in the entire NFL this last week. So I'm looking for that trend to hopefully continue. Teams who were in the lead tend to run the ball more. That time of possession, you saw that the Texans were first in the league after this last week doing that as well. So I think that that's the new identity. Run. We're going to run the ball. We're going to pound it down your throat. And then whoever else is open is just going to kill you over the top or intermediately or whatever it is when we have to pass. But I don't think at the same time, though, I think they did a good job of mixing it in. The time of possession was huge. The Colts were hardly on the field. I think they ran like 30 plays. I don't even know what they ran. It wasn't that many. It was probably in the 20s, to be honest. So I think that they're going to just try to do that to most of their opponents. But at the same time, they will pass enough. Like I said, Stroud had 32 attempts. They're pretty balanced. I think it was 32 rush attempts, so 35. They actually ran a little bit more if you want to include everybody else who ran, right? And a couple of times that CJ had to scramble, and it took away from those pass attempts. But 32 pass attempts still isn't that bad in a game where, like I said, Joe Mixon is toting the rock like the way he was and being super effective. So I think that that's, like I said, the identity that they're going to try to go with from now on and just kind of like lean on that. He was really, really brutal when running the football. He was lowering his shoulder, finishing every run, making the defenders pay. And that's been the attitude also with like the fullbacks we got in Stover, British Brooks, pancaking linebackers and D linemen. So you'd love to see that. And if the Texans are going to just be able to run over people like that, you want them to have that and be able to do that when it's cold, late in the year, playoff time, when you just got to lean on it and get that first down and continue drives. So, and not necessarily always have to put it in CJ Stroud's hands and put all the pressure. You get to take some of that off with these savvy vets like Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, as pictured here on the Neon Peacock exclusive, right? So shout out to that. Swap for those of y'all who don't know. So debut in that one here on the H-Town Huddle. All right. Let's see. A couple more notes on the Bears before we get up out of here. The trench warfare, like I mentioned. Oh, Montez Sweat, right? Yeah, versus Titus Howard. So Titus Howard did not have a good game, in my opinion, this last week. He's our right tackle. There was several plays where there was the one where CJ had the defender in his face try to throw it out of bounds, and it was nearly picked, right? That was a Titus Howard mishap. He basically just whiffed on the block there. Not something you want to see from a guy that you just paid millions of dollars. And so that kind of infuriated me, but he needs to clean that up and play a little bit better. I do follow him on Twitter, and I didn't let him have it yet. But if I see another week, I'll probably throw a comment in there and be like, hey, man, get it together. Let's see. You didn't say that Rome and Allen are banged up. Yeah, I haven't gotten there. I did kind of mention it. I did say that the receivers are a little bit banged up. I know that it's an ankle injury for one and a knee injury for the other. Not respectively. I think Rome has the knee and Allen the ankle, but correct me if I'm wrong. And then obviously, yeah, TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds are going to be nasty out there for Chicago's defense, and those are things to worry about. But, so are Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed. So was everybody who was talking shit, to the Texans in this game. And I didn't pull these up. I didn't pull out the video clips. That's what I wanted to do. I believe it was it not DeForest Buckner, because he had a great game. The D-line for the Colts had a good game, but some of their linebacking core was talking some smack, and they, like I said, they got run over by Mixon and Zaire Franklin and guys like that. Those guys are running their mouths on the podcast and talking about how CJ this and that or whatever, but they got smacked in the mouth and they took an L at home. So eat that, right? But yeah, these guys are nasty in their own right, and there's going to be a lot of respect given to them. And I think the Texans are going to come out and game plan very well. I think they already started looking at film. They turned the page very quickly. This is a great win for them, but you celebrate it that night, maybe a little bit the next morning when you're watching film, and then you turn the page to Chicago. The Texans' aspirations, you're not going to take anybody lightly. Take it 1 week at a time, right? One foot in front of the other, and and it's the head coach, and it's the way CJ talks, and that just trickles down all the way. So, Sir Mix-a-Lot did blow right through Zaire Franklin for real on a touchdown, lowered his shoulder. Zaire whiffed, rolled around in the background, almost posterized, bro. So, that's what you like to see from Sir Mix-a-Lot. So Mixon, like I said, probably another heavy dose of Mixon this game. If that's not working, well, then, we'll have to go to the ancillary pieces. And like I said, all three of those guys are dangerous. CJ Stroud spread the ball out very nicely. And I mentioned this with Kiddo when I was talking to him the other day, that, we mentioned that we like the Detroit offense and we like the Texans offense because they have 5-headed monsters. But the difference with the Texans and Detroit is that typically Detroit will lean on 2 running backs at times, and the Texans will spread it out, right? So very well balanced and efficient as far as CJ Stroud being a facilitator. But I was also disappointed with Goff's performance this last week, and hopefully he can pick it up, right? I'm still playing JD5 over him this week, guys. Fuck it. All right. Is there any way the Bears can score 30 points in any game? Yeah, we saw their defense and special teams do it. So if the offense actually clicks and does something, then yeah, I think it could happen fairly easily. The defensive and special teams touchdowns aren't going to happen all the time, but if you can get 1 or 2, right, it could happen. You feel like they cap out at 24. That's fair. 30 is pretty tough to get to. The Texans didn't even hit that in this last game, right? So I would say look for the Texans to hover around 30 points per game. Hopefully that's the new average for them this coming season. I did say that I think that they were 7th in points. Yeah, 7th in points per game, but 1st in time of possession, 1st in rushing yards per game, 2nd in total yards per game. Like I said, most of that came on the ground, which I think was really surprising to a lot of us who were watching this game, expecting the Texans to kind of come in and have CJ Stroud to have a 325 type game and 3 TDs or whatever, when it was really the Joe Mixon show, and him and his yeah. So doing his thing, hitting the smees, dancing that shit out there, fucking doing his thing. I'll promise I won't ever try to sneeze in my chair again. So I'll do that for myself.
What's that?
Yeah, it was a poor attempt at dancing, guys.
What's
Sorry.
that, brother?
So DJ Moore versus Stingley and Nico Collins versus Jalen Johnson. Yeah, so it should be fun. DJ Moore versus Sting. If the wide receiver group is a little banged up, right, and it's just DJ Moore out there, then that's that's better news for the Texans, right? But that's going to be a very good matchup to watch, intriguing. Like I said, Stingley, I know in the highlight, it looks like, he's covering Pierce the whole way, but that's like they have a quarter over him. So he was expecting inside help from Jimmy Ward, who like turned his back and then just got flat out beat. And so Stingley had to chase Pierce all the way down across field to the other side. And that's what made it appear like it was his responsibility. But if you go back at the PFF grades and you look at the coverage, he was supposed to actually pass him off to Ward, and Ward was supposed to stay on top of that, which he didn't. And therefore, it looked that way. But his PFF grade does not reflect that. It doesn't reflect the touchdown or him getting beat on that play necessarily. So I think he was just there in support and kind of surprised that Jimmy Ward fucked up so bad. Also, Jimmy Ward got mossed on that other deep catch by Mr. Pierce. So Ward is being, to me, he's kind of a liability back there. I've already said, let's replace him with Bullock and see what happens, right? But they probably want Ward in there for the leadership, the communication, and just his skills around the box. But yeah, back to it though. Caleb Williams, last week, 93 yards, 3.2 yards per attempt, 5.57 rate. Not good, Bob, not good. I think he held onto the ball a little bit too long. Like I said, if he would have just kind of tucked and ran a little bit, he might have helped himself out. Maybe trying to do a little too much too soon. Looked a little lost. Like I said, he preseason versus second, third stringers, everybody wanted to go ooh and ah because he made a throw. But once the real football started here in week one, he looked basically the opposite of what CJ Stroud looked once the lights turned on. 93 passing yards, 3.2 yards per attempt. Pretty lowly there. But going back to TJ Edward and Tremaine Edmonds, Tony Pollard did have over 5 yards per carry versus them last week. So like I mentioned, I think that the Texans are still going to probably try to exploit them in the run, set the tone first, and then maybe, in the second half start opening it up. Who knows? Maybe they'll just, come out heavy, play action, do something completely different. Right? Slowick is, when he's in his bag, he's in his bag. Typically, he knows what he's doing. Damn, with those numbers, Williams is going to be bad when he gets windy. Oh yeah, don't forget. And I will not forget that Bryce Young is trash. Yeah, it's pretty bad, man. What's going on over there? He's making other people look good. At least other defenses look good. Hey, shout out Brandon says, and Stroud's first game was versus an elite Ravens. Yeah, exactly. Not the BS Titans, right? So yeah, that's true. He finished his last season versus the Ravens and started versus the Ravens. Still has struggled against them. I think that's like, in his head, you got to circle that matchup on Christmas Day. That's one that he probably wants to show out and put some points up on the board for the offense, because in both of those games it was pretty tough sledding for CJ Stroud versus that defense. But now that he has these other weapons, I think that the run game has been established, that the fact that they can kind of control time of possession a little bit, they look like one of those juggernauts now in the AFC. Definitely a top 4 contender in my opinion, top 4, top 5. Because there are some good squads out here. Obviously, the Chiefs, the Ravens, I think are my 2 biggest teams where I'll put a target on their back that the Texans want to take down, right, on the AFC side. But then there's still, a few other contenders as well that I think it could be in the mix, Miami and whatnot. They just we got to see if they can get everything together. But I do think that the Texans are like a top 4 potential AFC team and have a shot this year. I think it's legitimate, at least an AFC championship game would be really good. But like I said, one game at a time. They passed the first test, 16 more to go. Chicago up next on the list here, but they get them at home. It's a home game and might be a little depleted for Chicago, so maybe a little easier task this time around. But never take your foot off the gas and don't take anybody lightly, obviously. So I think the Texans know what the goal is, and everybody's going to stay focused and just work on their assignments and do what they got to do. Last week, though, no Bears receiver had more than 40 yards receiving, so that's tough. The Texans did give up 100+ rating to A-Rich last week, but like I said, most of that was propped up by the 4 long passes. It was 4 completions for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns. So imagine doing that on 4 passes. It's pretty wild. Alec Pierce 3 for 3 for 125, and then Ashton Doolin 1 for 1 54-yard touchdown. So pretty crazy stuff. And I did mention, though, that if you're going to play some IDP guys, I would say start your Chicago Bears, because they're probably going to be tackling Joe Mixon a lot if they can establish time of possession and keep the sticks moving. So that's what I anticipate here. I don't think that the Texans are going to completely dominate on defense either. I do have a pretty wild, or I think at least the spread is kind of high for me. I think the Texans are going to cover that 6.5, and they'll probably do it by 2 touchdowns. I think I predicted, yeah, there it is, 30-17. And the Texans are 4-2 all time versus the Bears. So I do have a 30-17 victory for Houston. Go ahead and throw your prediction for the game in the comments. If you guys got the Bears winning, is it a close field goal, clunky thing? You can't say like everybody for the Texans gets injured, but give me your predictions on what we got here. Brandon throwing it in there. He says Texans win 27-9 and give up no TDs. Oh, okay, 3 field goals. Nice. I like that. Yeah, I'm giving them a little bit of credit here. I'm thinking that maybe the Bears somewhere late in the third quarter or fourth quarter muster up their first touchdown drive, or maybe they do it early and shock the Texans, and then they kind of get it going and hold them to a couple of field goals. But I do have the Bears scoring at least 2 touchdowns in this one. But you never know, right? You never know. On paper, I think a lot of people are just kind of pushing them aside. But, it's football. You got to line up and play every Sunday. It's any given Sunday, right? I think I have an any given Sunday. No, I didn't load that one up here. I was like, I have a whole speech for any given Sunday. It's just way too long to put on there. We'll just do this one instead. Get pumped up for that. Let's see. Who do we got? Bogart says, screw it. I'm going totally overzealous. The Texans are going to shut the Bears out. Oh, damn. Well, I hope so. I have the Texans defense in the homies league. So bet the under. Yeah, we've been the Texans have been hitting overs historically. They were the last 2 seasons, including this last week. And we'll see, right? We'll see. 45.5 might not get there though. Yeah, I have 30-17, so that puts us just hitting the over again. So yeah, I'm taking the over like I usually do. Kalen Bullock practice versus Williams every practice. That's very true, right? Kalen Bullock, I think, like I said, should probably get the start over Ward, or at least be in the rotation, eating into his snap counts. Ward is a little longer in the tooth. I think that the young rookie here, Bull Lock, and I like to put his name down with an actual, like a toro with horns, and then like the lock, so Bullock, together. I think that he's a talented guy that the Texans actually kind of stole in the draft. I'm glad that he fell to that. And he's definitely a position of need that when they drafted there. So that's good insight there, and that's very true back at USC. So Kalen Bullock from USC, the rookie safety with the interception last week. Let's see if he has any secrets or tendencies to tip off with some of the things that Caleb does. The Locksmith and Bullock. Yeah, that's correct, man. That is so awesome to have them two being drafted this year. I think kind of flying under the radar, but there was a graphic, and I don't think I have it. Wait, hold on. Since you reminded me, let's see. Where is it? I think I got it here somewhere. And I meant to pull it up when we were talking about Nick Caserio. Shit, maybe I didn't put it in here. Oh, no, here we go. Here's the Bullock interception. So there's the overthrow or Alec Pierce falling. So I'm not too sure, but there's Bullock extending it and grabbing that. And then here are our new additions, and that's retweeted there by Joe Mixon. Oh shoot! I thought this was I totally messed up. I thought this was Lassiter and Bullock. Whoops! Darn! I'm upset with myself. I guess I didn't save that one and upload it, but I did have a nice picture of the two rookies together from the game this past week. So my mistake. Everybody's starting to blur together, man. It's hard to read numbers. But it is what it is. In other fantasy news around, they have not ruled out tight end for the Dallas Cowboys, Jake Ferguson.
What you gonna do with all that junk inside your trunk? I'ma get you.
I heard mixed reports this week that his ankle was like pretty bad shape. It's just no big deal. I mean, his knee. I'm sorry, his knee was it was just some soreness that he would play, and so they haven't put him on the IR, and it's still up in the air. I don't know. Typically, I don't trust these things when stuff like that happens, and you see it happen. You want to just say that the guy's probably going to be out the following week, and it's just like some coaching brouhaha, smoke and mirrors kind of thing. So It is what it is. Brandon saying Kalen made a ton of interceptions in practices. Yeah. I did also see some of those, and that's all I had seen, just some kind of behind the scene joint practices stuff. He was breaking up passes on Stephon Diggs. I think he intercepted one on Stafford also. And then, obviously getting this interception this last game as well. So kind of a ball hawk, nose for the football. I think that hopefully by like week 4 or 5, he's like our starting safety over any of the other guys that they have out there. I keep forgetting who the other safety is besides Jimmy Ward. I know Jalen Petrie plays down in the box, but I meant the other cover safety. I can't remember his name at the moment. It's not MJ Stewart. It's the other guy. But regardless, ball hawk Bullock. Yeah, I like that for sure. Yeah, I definitely do some graphics for that coming up pretty soon. I like that. I'll jot that one down, actually. Appreciate that, Brandon. Yes, Murray. Thank you, Eric Murray. Yes, appreciate that. See, I need some Houston help every now and then. You're talking here for a few hours and then you're not drinking much fluids. I had a long work day. But getting through it, guys. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Like I said, showing up and showing out. But other than that, I don't think I have too much more. I've gone through most of my slides and all of the things that I wanted to talk about as far as the matchup. I did throw out that prediction, and we have talked about, last week, wrapping it up, what we had coming up for this week. So let's see. Murray stopped the 2-point conversion in Houston. Yeah, that's true. I did see that, and D'Amico did talk about that in the press conference and praised Murray for his play on that. So, and then especially being kind of like a coverage guy and then being able to do that on a goal line situation, or being known for being more of a coverage guy. So they also re-signed Desmond King to the practice squad. Initially, the reports were, we've signed Desmond King. And then the next reports were like, Desmond King doesn't want to sign to the practice squad. And then like 2 days later, he realized like nobody else is going to sign him. Just come back to the practice squad and we'll call you up if we need you. Come get that ring. Derek laughing about bogey betting the under. Yeah, he always wants to bet the under. I think we're moving on to week 2 and I'm learning with the Texans. You got to bet the over. You got to bet the over with the Texans, because if they score points, all of a sudden their defense has a lapse, and then boom, before you know it, King return man. Yeah. So on 2 levels, right? He is a good nickel corner, a good return guy, a good special team guy. So definitely a piece. I think we wouldn't have gotten as far as we did last year if we didn't have him. And he hit that spin-a-rooney on Joe Flacco's helmet. This is like my favorite GIF, my favorite play all time. Like, I think it's just so funny. Like, how the hell did that happen? When I saw it live, I was like, holy shit, he was breakdancing on Joe Flacco's head. So probably the craziest, best clip I've ever seen. I actually used it in a tweet today about was it today or yesterday, about Desmond King signing. I was like, come on, man. I was like, you got to sign with the practice squad. What are you going to do? Go to the WWE? And I hit that GIF of him hitting the spin-a-rooney. Got a couple of likes on the old Twitter app. So it's pretty funny. Or the X, whatever you want to call it. Elon Musk is over here at SpaceX down the road building a empire. But it is what it is. Any other things from the chat that you guys want to talk about? Any fantasy questions before I go? I am here at your disposal. Anybody want to hit me with something? And if not, that's fine. We can close it out, and we'll come back next Wednesday night. Make sure that you do check us out, 8:30 p.m. Central Time on the GWN Network. Make sure that you're also following on Spencer the Guru's channel, the Heart to Start channel, the Neon Peacock channel, myself. What else? Oh, yeah. Wake your game up tomorrow morning. Oh, not tomorrow morning. Friday morning, Tuesday mornings. We have Playmakers Thursday nights, Guru Power Hour Monday, usually either right before or right after the live watch parties for Monday nights, and a whole bunch of other stuff headed your way. We also have the Diamond Joe Show sporadically popping up every now and then. We also have, how many other people have Mixon on their fantasy teams? Me. Let's see. I'm going to go to my sleeper and see what leagues. I think I only have them in like 2 leagues, to be honest. Let's see. Jamo. But where I do have him, man, it felt good, didn't it? Because you got him at a discount. Like, people weren't drafting him really highly because they felt like, he's lost a step, he was inefficient. He just didn't look good on that Bengals team last year, because the Bengals team last year wasn't good, and the Bengals team this year doesn't look good without Joe Mixon. To be honest, I'm a little worried about Joe Burrow and everybody over there. There's a lot of drama with holdouts, and when you have stuff like that going on, it doesn't help the team vibe, the feng shui, the way that these people groove. So That's why the Texans went out and they paid Nico Collins super early. Like, hey, man, you're not even due yet. Here, we're going to pay you, bro. Like, you earned it. So there's different ways in how you handle that stuff. And if you get out in front like that, then you've locked in a top 12 wide receiver super cheap. I mean, so you just got to play your cards smart in the right way. And that's why more kudos to Mr. Nick Caserio, man. No Mixon, a woozy Boyd, sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, Mixon, man, that's crazy. Like for them, and I mentioned it earlier that Mixon felt like they did him a little bit dirty. They asked him like, how much would he like to play Cincinnati in a revenge game? And he said like, I'm going to leave that alone the same way they left me alone. So I think he was a little hurt by them not wanting to bring him back after all those years and the kind of work that he has done for them. And then to pay his backup the kind of money that they did, and Chase Brown, they were getting the money really. And then they brought in Zach Moss. So it just seemed kind of off to me. But I think over here he's getting treated right. He actually has a huge the new H-Town H. He has an iced out H-Town H, and he was wearing it today in interviews. So Joe Mixon fully embracing Houston, fully embracing the culture. Stephon Diggs is probably still getting lost on the highway. I have no idea, on Interstate I-35, who knows? But but I'm so glad that both of these guys are part of the team. Really, really fortunate to have people, like I said, last year, you have CJ kind of turn it around, and that opens the doors for free agents to come in and want to help out. And so we still haven't really seen Daniel Hunter get that sack. We saw it preseason, right? But he hasn't gotten it yet. But we know that he is a force to be reckoned with, him and Daniel off the edge, him and Will Anderson off the edges. And then in a few weeks from now, we will be getting Danico Autry off of suspension. So that's another free agent acquisition that had 10 plus sacks last season, where, he should be able to help in the interior. But for now, guys like Mario Edwards with that sack that he got last week and his 3 pressures are really helping out. And I think that as a unit, everybody's doing their job and working well together. This is what you like to see from the Texans. And a big difference this year from last year is that we don't have 17 to 20 guys on the injury report every week. Right now, we're really healthy. Knock on wood. So hopefully everything stays that way, and we just continue to roll. Up next, the challenge, like I said, it's at home versus the Chicago Bears, but they're going to be all iced out this time instead of wearing the dark steel blue new uniform. So 2 of these in a row, because apparently it's tradition to wear home on the first white game. I mean, to wear white in the first home game. So man, I'm getting tired, guys. Let's see. Mixon is 4-1 versus Mahomes all time and took the team to the Super Bowl. That's true, man. I totally forgot about that. And so leaning on him going forward is going to be very crucial. Hopefully, like I said, he just stays healthy and continues to do what he does. He's a big back. A lot of people don't realize that he's virtually the same size as Saquon Barkley. So I think that he can handle that workload, and he looked really good doing it this last week, man. I don't think 30 carries is sustainable every single week, but he's going to try to get there, to be honest. So, and if we can do that and then share the wealth with some of the backups, then we'll just be killing teams that way. Hunter didn't really hit AR, but he still had him wincing. Yeah, exactly. So there was a couple of plays, and I mentioned it briefly, where AR was throwing the ball, and I think he got his hand, or he tipped the ball, and he got him kind of, looking at that. So I think that was Daniil getting some pressure there, and still making an impact on the game, regardless of the fact that they weren't sacks, right? And Autry and Harris are still, Christian Harris, totally forgot about him, and he wasn't even placed on the IR. And so H2O did admirably. He was the leading tackler with 7 tackles. And I didn't see if they had any other rotational pieces in at linebacker, but I did see Jimmy Ward playing linebacker in certain situations. And I think that's to kind of just get creative and kind of either that, or it was also that period where they caught the Texans with too many DBs on the field and he had to come in and stay playing linebacker. I don't know, but there's going to be things that they've learned from this game, especially like the end of the first half when they thought they had a timeout and then they gave it back to them and the clock kept running and they didn't attempt a field goal. So it should have been a 5-point game instead of a 2-point game or whatever. So yeah, H2O showed out, man. Henry 2-2-0. Yeah, good stuff. You love to see this stuff from your team where all the ancillary pieces that weren't like big name guys are still stepping in and doing things like you mentioned, Murray and H2O and everybody just doing their job and buying into the system. And if you can do that, man, then that's how teams continue to win. That's how they continue to win close games. And that's how they continue to be just good storied franchises. And set that winning mindset in. And if you do all those little things, follow the details, then all that other stuff just falls into place. And then you're kind of like not worried, but you're like, oh man, like things aren't going, like when things aren't going your way and things aren't going well, you don't stop and look at your teammate panicked. You just like, hey, let's stick with it. And things end up turning around. I was part of a couple of teams where, we had really bad play for 2 years. And I know what it was like to have good talent and not good either coaching or just teamwork or whatever it is. And then finally being able to put all those pieces together in one season. And just like, even when things go wrong, you're still kicking so much ass that, you can get away with some of that and be resilient and bounce back and still work through all the ups and downs. Right. And the season's long, and you heard CJ Stroud talk about it, a lot last year, and same thing with D'Amico, and they echo each other in a lot of the philosophies, right? But you got to just stay even keel. You can't be doing this. So I think, like I said, good first win, turn the page with the Colts. We're on in Chicago, but at the same time, you're not overlooking anybody. You're not dismissing anything or anyone, regardless of personnel. You're just going in there to do your job, like I said, and beating the man in front of you. And that's what's most important. If you do that, then you can stack days, you can stack wins, and everything's good, right? And you have 3-4 months of just smiles at the podium after all the wins, right? So this team, I talked about it last week. If you guys want to go back and look at last week and some of the stuff I covered over the offseason with acquisitions and just the whole overall vibe, go ahead and check that one out as well. But we will be back next week. Appreciate everybody for being here and rocking with me for, again, another hour and a half to 2 hours. It's just the way I like to do it. I have extended the invite to several of my Houston buddies who do know the team very well and also have some of their own online social deals where they do statistics and fantasy football and whatnot. So one of these days, I'll have a couple of special guests on here, and I'll go ahead and announce it with some of my other H-Town fanatics who are really, really good at fantasy football as well. And they can give me some insight, and we can bounce ideas off of each other. But until next time, guys, I just want to say, peace, love, chicken grease. Go get you guys some good food. Enjoy it. Tomorrow we got Thursday night football. We'll probably have a Thursday night football playmakers watch party, which is how we do it around here. Go check out my YouTube channel. Go check out the Tank Dell recovery video highlight to the Speed Me Up Sonic song that's slowed and reverb, chopped and screwed. So it has a good H-Town vibe to it. Go check out some of my other videos there from Bogart Scott Free, rapper extraordinaire, where I am dubbing him over as other cartoon people, villains, the Joker, Batman, and whatnot. So a lot of cool stuff on there. Feature a lot of his music on the show as well and on the channel. Go support my bro out there. And yeah, that's basically it, man. I will catch you guys next week. Enjoy football. Good luck to everybody. Make sure you set your lineups. Get your Thursday players out of your flex, move them into a starting position, even if it's who's playing tomorrow. I already forget. The Dolphins. And yeah, make sure that you guys get those guys out. There's been several Dolphins ruled out. Raheem Mostert, I think, has already been ruled out with a chest. Make sure you're picking up, you're doing your due diligence and picking up like Jeff Wilson, just in case. You never know. Jalen Wright's probably already rostered. So just, you guys already know, your thing. You've probably already done it, right? But just keep it up, guys. We're in the grind. We're doing our thing. So let's do it. Let's roll. I think we'll leave you guys this time on last year's old H-Town Huddle intro. So that way you guys get a good 90 seconds and you get to listen to the sweet, sweet sounds of my cousin Roy Dale chopping it up there with some H-Town sounds, man. But until next time, guys, appreciate everybody once again. I know this has been a long-winded outro, but peace out, man. Appreciate the support and join me next time. Tell your friends. Tell your friends.
I'm Texas forever.
All these structures make me anxious. Look, I'm just trying to f you, not them hoes you came with. Pull up on 6 so loud and banging. Yeah, Texas forever, still twisting my fingers. Texas forever, you speaking my language. Look, all in the day, about to for Wednesday. Out in the field trying to score me a deal. Put my name by that X like I'm Kimbe. I do it off of my team, just a young covered in green like I'm Dende. We ain't compadres comprende. Clutch city, crush city, whatever you call it. I stay with my friends, stay hands in, never hand out. Look, I had to go get it, my everybody say I'm the man now. Wrist moving in and out the kitchen. My might pull up on 6 in the whip, whipping it. I'm just a young getting it. All I had cars, clothes, hoes, coming in fast, but I'm sipping slow. Cause it's Texas forever. You already know. It's more down than
X forever.